iFanboy at the San Diego Comic-Con 2012 is brought to you by Seagate. I'm here with the Marvel Chief Creative Officer, Joe Quesada. How you doing?
I'm doing great, man. How you doing?
Pretty good, pretty good. We're here in the chaotic Marvel booth.
It's just a little crazy.
It's a little crazy. Yeah. So when you took the editor-in-chief job over 10 years ago,
like 12 years ago, yeah.
Did you ever think things would be like this now? Iron Man 3, media frenzy?
You know, if you go back and read a lot of my earlier interviews, yeah, it's just really where I wanted us to get.
Yep.
I used to talk about total and complete world domination,
yep.
And it's looking like we're getting there.
Yeah.
We're getting there.
You gotta be pretty proud to see it all, because you were this is going back to your tenure beginning, started this track.
Well, you know, I mean, we were certainly there at the beginning of, you know, Marvel was, you know, on the verge of bankruptcy, or was bankrupt, and, you know, we had a bunch of great smart people working at Marvel who really helped us, you know, get back to where we are today. So it's been a hell of a ride. It's been a lot of fun, and it's been great to see Marvel's presence at the show, and just the show in general grow to what it is today.
Yeah. So before the show, Marvel made a big announcement, Marvel Now. How involved in the plans to the relaunch were you with Axel and the whole rest of the crew in terms of doing that?
Yeah, you know, I've been involved from the beginning, but you know, my involvement is more global as opposed to like dealing with the intricacies of every little story,
sure.
Which is what I used to do as editor-in-chief, but I just don't have the time to do, and that's really what Axel's there for now. But yeah, I've been very involved with Marvel Now and the planning process and where a lot of these stories are going, just like I'm involved with our movies and animation and, you know, our growing TV business.
Sure, yeah. And you still get involved on the art side, with that great art piece that's over there in the booth with all the characters?
Yeah, every once in a while. I mean, it took me probably longer to do than I wanted to, because I had to do it piecemeal, because I had to do like a couple hours here, then go back to doing something else in a couple hours here. I really want to do more drawing. I just don't have enough hours in the day to do that and be a father to my daughter.
Well, that's important too.
Yeah, you know.
We've seen some key kind of character redesigns recently. The Captain Marvel, I believe you worked with Jamie McKelvey on that to do that design. And even in that Marvel Now piece, like walk me through redesigning a character like Cyclops. Like, how did you approach redesigning Cyclops?
Well, in the case of Cyclops, I mean, every one of those characters has a different sort of origin design-wise. I want to be clear. I mean, I didn't design any of those characters. I had some input with respect to, as design started coming in, I was like, hey, how about this, how about that? The Cyclops one just came in whole like that from Chris Pacello. Chris designed it. He sent in a bunch of rough drawings, and I don't know if I did him justice, because they were sort of rough, right?
Yeah.
And you know, it was just design work, so I tried to capture what he had there. But that's all Chris Pacello on that one. Yeah. Cool.
So now in terms of the comic industry and what's going on, you know, we had DC with the New 52 last year. You know, got a huge creator-owned boom happening this year over at Image Comics. How do you see the comics landscape right now? You know, what's Marvel's role in that?
Listen, the comics landscape has never been greater. It's been growing every year. Yes, we have an ebb and flow, but it's been very, very consistent and very steady within that ebb and flow. So I think we're incredibly healthy. You know, for years I've been hearing people say, well, when's the other shoe going to drop? When's the crash coming? You know, I don't think there's a crash coming, because I think we've been very, very smart. Retailers are very, very smart. Companies are getting very, very smart to avoid things like that happening. We're being very strategic about the way we do things. So I think it's great. You know, every one of these San Diegos takes on its own personality. Like what's the thing that's happening in San Diego this year?
Right.
So the things you mentioned are things that are happening this year. Last year was a little bit different. Next year it'll be something else. But I think it's great, because it just means that the comic industry is evolving, changing, and keeping people passionate and interested. Because if it was the same thing every year, people would stop showing, right?
San Diego Comic-Con coverage is brought to you by Seagate.
The Seagate GoFlex satellite hard drive. We want to thank Seagate for sponsoring all of our San Diego coverage. This little device can hold all your movies, music, media, stream it wirelessly via Wi-Fi to your iPad or your Android tablet.
You just tuck it in the bag.
You just tuck it in your pocket, and you carry around your tablet, and you can stream it. Totally easy using the free GoFlex satellite app. So go to Seagate.com/iFanboy. Get 10% off the GoFlex satellite external hard drive. Thank you to Seagate.
Do I get one of those?
No, you don't. I'm here with Axel Alonso, the editor-in-chief of Marvel Comics. How's it going?
Good, good.
All right, so you guys are here with some pretty big news. It's not a reboot. It's a relaunch, Marvel Now. For those who haven't heard of it, what is Marvel Now?
Yeah, Marvel Now, for 4 months, every week, readers can go into a comic book store and find a new issue 1 that serves as an entry point into the Marvel Universe. A ground-level experience, accessible to all. You know, respectful of the long-term fan. It ain't a reboot, but embracing the newcomer and the lapsed fan. And we've announced a few of the titles already, starting with Uncanny Avengers, which is a book that sort of stakes a flag in the new Marvel Universe post-Avengers versus X-Men. And as we've announced, we've got all new X-Men and Avengers with Jonathan Hickman. So we have bi-weekly shipping, Avengers. So we will be making more announcements in the coming months as to what we have in store. It's very exciting. All of our top talent and a few surprises are taking on new challenges with new co-conspirators and artists. And everybody came with their A game. We just did a retreat where everybody discussed what they want to do with their books. And there's not a weak link in the chain.
Cool. So now, of course, this is super. I don't want to say controversial, but everyone's kind of talking about it, and it's also coming after DC's reboot of the New 52. How much of what you guys are doing with Marvel now was, did you look at what DC was doing and say, okay, well, we thought they made a misstep here, so we're going to do our relaunch this way, or?
Well, we didn't take cues from DC. Yeah. The one thing that I think all of us learned is the power of the number one. Yeah. But this really is very much a return to what we did when Joe Quesada first came here, when I first came to Marvel, which was to find the right writer and the right artist and come on to take over, Amazing Spider-Man, New X-Men, and just say, go. Yeah. I personally like this more than an event because I love the characters and the teams for the stories that they're unique to tell. So for me personally, Marvel Now is long overdue. I'm excited to see, the line as a whole being revitalized, writers and artists being taken out of their comfort zones and finding out things about themselves, really, at the end of the day. Who would have thought Brian Bendis on X-Men, for instance? Fans of Fantastic Four must be chomping at the bit, imagining what Jonathan Hickman will do with Avengers. I think it's all very exciting, and I think it's all very accessible.
So now, making it accessible to new and lapsed readers, is that sort of admitting that there's a problem with bringing in new and lapsed readers with comics? I mean, do you think that the continuity, and not so much continuity, but the numbering and the long-going stuff is a problem in the industry?
Well, I think that, our medium is unique insofar as our characters have decades worth of stories behind them, and they've been handled by multiple writers and editors. There's no comparison to made in TV. Star Trek runs 4 or 5 seasons with probably one writer's room. You take a look at my favorite show, Breaking Bad, for instance, which is a writer's room controlled by a very strong showrunner. The challenges they face are very different than the ones we do. We have to be able to find points in time where we can remind readers out there that this world is for them as well. The trick, of course, is to do so in a way that's respectful of the long-term fans, and that's where I emphasize this is not a reboot. Right. Everything that happens in Marvel now happens in the Marvel Universe that readers are invested in. There's no reset button, there's no alternate universe. This is all taking place in the Marvel Universe now, and the new stories grow out of the new status quo post-AVX.
It's funny how much emphasis the long-term fans put on numbering, and I know for me, I'm an Uncanny X-Men fan, and when you guys relaunched #1, it took a while for me to say, hey, it's just a number. It's not,
Yeah, again, it's one of those things. It's one of the unique things about our medium, and it makes us different from everything else. But I think that I like this because many years ago when I came to Marvel, rebooted Amazing Spider-Man and New X-Men, but usually it was I think my first issue of Spider-Man was Amazing Spider-Man number 30. Right. So I really love the #1 and what it says to people, and of course we've had #1s over the past few years, but this is the first time we've done it line wide. Yeah. Where 80 to 90% of our line is going to have a new #1, new creative team, charging forward into the future.
So now, with it being 80 to 90%, what is determining that 10 to 20%? Why not do everything?
Sure. Well, there's a few books that interrupting the regularly scheduled programming made no sense. Yeah. Daredevil would be a perfect example of that. Is in that Daredevil, we have a book where Mark Waid is at the height of his powers on the title with the rotating artists he's got, and there really is no reason to attack it. We could have made the same argument with any number of other titles, but and there were some hard choices to be made along the line. But we never made a move in which the creator felt that they were being booted. Yeah. Everyone knew that they would be with every time they were, with heartbreak, leaving a title, they would be embracing a new title with love.
Right. So about some of the titles that have been announced, Uncanny Avengers to me was the most kind of curious because for years X-Men and Avengers have they haven't been segregated, they've coexisted in the universe, but this seems to be a joining of the two kind of camps.
Absolutely. Yeah. You know, as a former X-Men group editor, I learned the hard way how segregated the X-Men are from the Marvel Universe. And it had always been a long-term goal for me to see how they could be more integrated and see how they would, what a world would be like where, you know, the line between, you know, superhero and mutant superhero isn't that great. Right. And indeed, can it be? You know, can there be peace amongst them, and can they coexist? You know, again, as a metaphor for life today. Right. I think that at the end of the day, what's exciting about this is that, you know, many years ago, we were sitting at a retreat, and I forget who said it, but we wondered why it is that Earth's mightiest heroes didn't include staples like Wolverine and Spider-Man. And after a bit of arguing about heresy and so on and so forth, we decided that it made sense, and the Avengers ended up being revitalized as a process. You put your big guns in your big gun book. So with Uncanny Avengers, you know, with no spoilers, I'll just say that this is a team composed of Avengers and X-Men in equal measure that is assembled to deal with a specific threat. But it will learn along the way that it is so much more than a team assembled for that specific threat. So, you know, where the stories take us will be fascinating, but I think it's a seismic event.
Right. So Rick Remender is going to be writing that with John Cassaday on art. Remender on Uncanny X-Force has kind of built up a reputation of doing the unthinkable and making a book like X-Force into a huge hit. Is that kind of what you're tapping him to do with Uncanny Avengers? Or?
Yeah, I mean, it was two things. I mean, first of all, Rick was a guy who pitched the concept that came closest to what we ended up with on Uncanny Avengers. We workshopped it in the room, and it escalated. And he had, because, you know, he was the one who brought the raw material to the table, he was the one who had first dibs. But beyond that, you know, Rick is really hot right now. He has a lot to say. People are really liking what he's done. He has a great hit record, hit to miss ratio right now. You know, you see what he did with Venom. Who'd have thought? Yeah. So, you know, taking him and having him bring his imagination to this, you know, this big, you know, unprecedented book it's a gamble, but I think it's one we're willing to make.
Yeah. So now moving on to Avengers with Jonathan Hickman. So Avengers is going to be bi-weekly, and he's also doing New Avengers?
Yeah, I'm not sure the exact shipping schedule, but I think it's close to bi-weekly with a New Avengers book, yeah.
Okay, and so with that kind of I mean, as from an editorial standpoint, that's a pretty, I mean, every other week a story coming out. How does that affect the greater story planning? You know, what is a 4-year story becomes a 2-year story, so to speak, really?
Well, you know, Jonathan is very meticulous with his planning, and this was especially evident in his run on FF. Yeah. He thinks in the long term and in the broadest strokes and fills in. You know, he has easily a 2-year plan that's penciled, and probably a 3 to 4 year plan that's, you know, a little bit more vague. Our first year plan's pretty much inked. Okay. He knows what he's doing. He knows how he wants to tell it. We know how his super stories tee up things for the future, for, say, the summer after next. So it'll be interesting to see what he does. But, you know, again, he's a man with a plan. Cool.
So, so I know you can't reveal details, and we don't want to spoil anything. But with Brian Michael Bendis taking on all new X-Men, and what's been revealed is that we've got some the original 5 X-Men coming to the present. With Marvel's sliding window of time frame, are they teenagers of the 60s or of the early 90s?
Well, what I just say is they're children of an era that predates the era we're in now. Okay. Obviously, they can't be children. If we tie it to the 60s. We're dating it in a way that isn't going to be accessible to the fans. Yeah. I would just expect that these are kids who were raised with the iPod 1 first generation, okay. You know, and remember the cassette tape. Yeah. But they don't go quite as far back as, you know.
Yeah, we were wondering if Jean would be in the pillbox hat or if she'd be into grunge, you know?
No, I should probably be more, maybe more into grunge or hip-hop, yeah.
So Brian Michael Bendis, he spent so long on Avengers, and he had a little dalliance with the X-Men with House of M. You being a former X-Men editor, are you working closely with him to get the X-Men voice right? Or, you know, I know he said he's not scared of it, but is, you know, like it's a challenge for him.
Well, that's primarily X-Men editor, or group editor, Nick Lowe's job. I'm in the loop and I'm involved. I know the long-term planning and I've read all the scripts. Yeah. But that's really more Nick's job than mine. Mine is more the macro view.
Cool. So with these 3 books first announced, I know we got more coming. Is there any creative teams or any titles, and I know you probably can't reveal them, but that you can't wait to get out because you think people are really going to react to?
Well, there's too many to count.
Yeah.
You know, again, like I said, you know, this is an initiative that I am personally excited about because I grew up reading Marvel characters in the 70s, and every book scratched a different itch. Every book took me in a different type of journey, a different type of voyage. And I loved the genres that were being plumbed, from science fiction in FF, to kung fu action in Shang-Chi, to blaxploitation in Luke Cage Hero for Hire or Power Man. And so my favorite thing is when you can see these books stand on their own 2 feet and offer the unique voyage that only they can. So to see, you know, what people have brought to the table, I'm very excited. I will say, without hedging bets, that one book I am very excited about was the one book where I made the call to the writer and said, look, you're going to think I'm crazy, but I'm going to tell you why I think you should write this book,
Okay.
and not a book you're thinking about. And we chatted for about half an hour, and by the end of that conversation, he was like, that's the book I want to write. There was no other book he wanted to write. I'm real excited to see what he does with that book.
You've been in the editor-chief chair for a couple of years now, but this is a big step. Do you really kind of see this as minting your stamp on Marvel?
Yeah,
your legacy?
Yeah, it's an ongoing thing to a degree, and again, it's always a team effort. You know, coming as editor-in-chief, the main thing I wanted to do was, in these economic times, create a hit, and pushed for AVX, and we mobilized, and crew of great editors, writers, and artists put out our biggest hit in forever. Yeah. I like what it did because it not only put asses in seats and pumped some sales for everybody, put some money into the retailers' hands and everybody else's, is that it teed us up for this. You know, very early on in the planning of AVX, we knew how this was ending, and we planted our flag for this change. Yeah. Something that I welcome wholehearters. Cool.
So how much of a challenge will it be to make Guardians of the Galaxy a top book? Okay.
Look, it'll always be a challenge, but at the end of the day is, I'm super excited about what we're doing. These so-called cosmic superheroes are fascinating to me.
It's one of my favorite books. I mean, I've been a long time Nova, a long time Guardian, so I'm glad to see them coming back. And it's interesting with all the movie news and all that stuff to see the alignment happening. Are you guys in sync with the studios guys? How much are you? I mean, are you just like we're publishing and let them pick up draft after us?
Well, look, the long and short is we're one company. Yeah. So I'm aware of what Kevin Feige and his crew at Marvel West are doing, just the same way as they asked to be appraised of what we're doing. We don't step on each other's toes. I know for publishing, we don't follow their lead, but we're very interested in knowing what they're developing for the future and seeing if there's a way that we can find our plans in publishing to complement and help. There's certainly nothing wrong with making sure that you've got good comic product out there to aid up, to sort of grease the tracks for the movie or the animation.